Nothing you can do, right?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started here. I call this public safety meeting to order. If you would just bear with me, this is the first one I've ever chaired. So I think our chairman's coming right now. So, but I did call it to order. Here, you can have the switcher. Yeah, you can have your chair back. Yeah. I just warmed it up for you.
I apologize for being late. I got kidnapped by our county administrator and our corporate counsel and went a little bit long. So
I just want to say one other thing before we get started. Helen Dennis texted me this morning and she wants me to tell everybody on public safety hi for her. So,
well, that's out of order. All right, so Mr. Buckholz has called this meeting to order at 9 o'clock. This is the March meeting for public safety. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call?
James Schlender,
Present.
Ron Buckholz,
present.
Ed Peters,
Present.
Dale Schleter, Chuck Van Etten.
Here. All right, Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with open meetings laws?
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statute.
For the committee members, the agenda has been presented. Is there any changes or any modifications that we want to do at this time? Chuck, you got anything you want to move on the agenda?
I do not.
All right, Mr. Slater, we're good. Moving on to public comments. Is there anybody here in the audience that is not on the agenda that wishes to address the committee? If you do, you have 3 minutes. James, you got 3 minutes. And if you wander off topic, I'm going to apologize ahead of time, but I'm going to pull you back on topic. And then at the end of 3 minutes, we're going to move on.
I'll just speak on the probably I was going to stay go with the maintenance department. And just wondering, I wanted to bring to the attention of the board of public safety and housing, sanitary conditions of some of the housing within Sawyer County. I just wanted to, I know I may not know today or may not be able to speak of it today, but I'd like to bring to the attention of the concern that I have for some of the housing that is available within Sawyer County. I know where I live at the LOI Park Department, some of the upgrades that are needed there could be addressed if the county was to provide those to the LOI department. I know that's something that the landlord or the county needs to come together on and discuss. That's just, and that's just one residential area that is a concern. But I'm sure there are many others. Getting out of construction for years, something that I've been aware of and have paid attention to as I went to the county and served what I have.
Okay. Before we go any farther, I want to make sure, has everyone signed in?
If you're not on this.
If you haven't, just make sure that you're writing in normal English so that our clerk can understand. Okay, all right. Anybody else who wishes to address the committee that's not on the agenda? And moving on to number 6, minutes from last meeting. Has the board had a chance to review the minutes?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I have a motion from Mr. Buckholz.
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Schleter. Mr. Van, do you have any questions about the minutes?
I do not.
Any other comments about the minutes or the motion that's on the floor? Hearing no comments, call for a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next, we're going to the circuit court report. Is the judge available to present a report?
I think they said that he has a trial.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's what those judges do, I'll tell you. So we don't have anything for the judge's report. All right, so Mr. Hoff, we have going on to 7B, courtroom remodel update. floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to update the Public Safety Committee on the status of the remodeling project related to the second courtroom. At the last county board meeting, the county board did pass a resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds to fund that remodel project. Since that time, we've been dealing with veteran architects to get them under contract to keep promoting that the design of that. Also working on a request for proposal, an RFP for the construction manager that will be in charge of the construction. So we're issuing that RFP this month, probably within a week or two. That will then allow us to accept bids for the construction of that project. Again, that project is not only a second courtroom, but it does accommodate other court functions, especially the diversion functions that we're working with Justice Point on to help with some of the issues related to the court function as well. So not just the courtroom, but some other features that will help citizens of Sawyer County as well.
Any questions for Mr. Hoff regarding the courtroom remodel update? Anybody in the audience that wishes to have any questions about that? Ms. Dunn? Oh, no. Anybody online? All right, moving on. James?
For that courtroom extension, I mean, I've been in that courtroom multiple times. It's never really, I don't think I've ever seen it at full capacity. Express the need and to spend the money. I'm only been really freaking, but all the necessary to have that.
It was voted and approved on by the county, so I guess the need has been was established. Okay. Moving on to number 8, clerk reports report. We do have a report from the clerk. Is the clerk available for any other additions?
No, she said she wouldn't get 10.
Okay. Do we have any questions or any concerns from the report submitted by the clerk? Hearing none, moving on to number 9, district attorney's report. I don't see the district attorney present. Any questions or anything about the district attorney? Hearing none, moving on to number 10, we do have a report from child support, and Madam Director is present. Is there any questions regarding child support? Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the report. Moving on.
Reference to guardian ad litem. Can you define to me what and or who a guardian ad litem is and what services they provide?
The guardian ad litem is appointed by the court to provide assistance to one of the parties that may or may not be able to speak for themselves. Usually it's children or people who are not in the capacity to fully participate or appreciate what the legal consequences are that are being, for the proceedings that they're involved with. Guardian ad litems are licensed through the state, and then usually are licensed attorneys or have some kind of training that gives them a qualification to qualify for that appointment so that they can act on behalf of the party for a specific issue that's in front of them.
Okay, so reference to the child is the child. Normally the custody and the custody rights and decision making is for the parents control.
So one is, the topic here is child support, and you're asking about child custody proceedings. That's not the purview of this committee, and we do have a report from the child support department. Any other questions regarding number 10? Moving on to the coroner's report. Is the coroner present?
He is not, but I'm here. He's got some family issues that he has to take care of this morning. The only thing I can add to his report, John and I are going to meet with the Human Services. They're going to have a meeting for Adult Protective Services, actually on the 23rd of this month. And we're going to address and talk about this nuisance ordinance or hazardous living conditions, because they said, yes, it is definitely a problem, and they have some issues right now that I was talking to Rose about. And so we're going to attend that meeting, and if you could give us until next month, we'll give a report back on how that meeting went. And if we're going to go, would like to go a different direction or add, something to what we've talked about in the past.
So you're asking for 11B to be tabled to next month?
If we could go, yeah, we'll give you a report back then from that meeting also, and hopefully we'll have a little better idea of what direction we would like to go.
Mr. Slater? What was that date again?
23rd of March. I believe, yes, I believe that's going to be down there in their office. John's got an email on it, and he didn't get the email to me, so I can't really refer to that as any information for you, but it's just what he had told me. Yep.
Any other questions for the coroner's report? Mr. Van Etten, I've been remiss. Is there anything that you wish to add regarding any of the topics that we've covered so far?
No, thanks.
All right, so we do have 11B. There is a request for this to be tabled to next month.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair, to table 11B until next month's meeting.
I have a motion from Mr. Buckles. I have a second from Mr. Schluter. In discussion, is there any discussion on the motion or any concerns about tabling this to next month? Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you wish to add to that?
I do not.
Seeing no other discussion, call for the vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to number 12. Ms. Sanchez, thank you for appearing.
Good morning.
The floor is yours.
First time since I think a year that I finally got brave enough to appear. I'm tired of Zoom meetings. I'm tired of not seeing people.
And the weather's nice.
And the weather is nice.
There you go.
Pretty much my focus for the last year, like I said before, has been COVID response, ordering and distributing PPE, and doing COVID testing at the Winter Fire Hall, managing that. Yesterday was our last COVID testing, so we're now moving more towards opening up vaccination clinics down there at the Winter Fire Hall to service our southern constituents. Otherwise, just working on a ton of work. I did get today the checks for reimbursement from the state came through, so that'll help with the budget. Otherwise, that's pretty much been my focus is the COVID response.
Any questions for Ms. Sanchez in terms of emergency services for the county? Mr. Bennett, do you have any questions for Ms. Sanchez?
I do not.
Hearing none, thank you for your report.
Thanks, Pat.
Moving on to number 13, Criminal Justice Council update. We have two items for discussion. First is it's one item with two votes that are required. The first is there's an MOU that has been discussed between the tribe and Sawyer County. Sawyer County as a county board, and it identifies contributions for services for people who are in the criminal justice system in Sawyer County. And what the tribe is offering is to provide some financial assistance as well as some logistical assistance with people who may be in the justice system that may be either enrolled with the tribe or enrolled with a tribe somewhere in the United States. And so this MOU is a renewal from a previous memorandum of understanding. And essentially what it does is it does two things. It provides representation for the tribe to participate in discussions with criminal justice when that CJCC meeting meets. It's the stakeholders, and there's a viewpoint that they would bring in. The second is they also provide, I think it's $50,000 a year for the next 3 years to help offset the cost for Justice Point and for the services that are being offered to the jail. And some of the services that are being offered is electronic monitoring, some services in the jail, some alternatives to incarceration for treatment. And so what is in front of you today is, I guess what we would need a motion to accept this MOU and advance it to the county board. Before we do that vote, I want to address item B, which is when the MOU was drafted, there was one omission that was not included in the original document. But because the document had gone through the tribal governing board with their ratification, they wanted to amend it so that the tribal judge would be recognized as a sitting member of the CJCC. And so you have two things that are in front of you. One is a formal approval from this board, from this committee, for the MOU itself to advance it to the final review and final approval from Sawyer County. And the second is an amendment to that same document, recognizing that the tribal court judge would sit as a voting member on the CJCC. And the documents were made available to you. So I think there was a compass or email or whatever it is. I know that we're going through some growth spurts here with the website. So with that being said, I want to open the floor up for discussion with the committee members. If there's any committee members that wishes to speak to this issue. Mr. Schluter.
Thank you. Does this sounds good, I'd be happy to support. This has not anything to do with the tribal court taking over the hearing of minor traffic violations out there.
No, this only deals with citizens that have been charged in the criminal justice system and going through the court process, whether it's bond testing or after they've been convicted or their conviction of the offense that's alleged, that we're trying to alleviate a couple of concerns. One is we had a major issue with overpopulation at the jail, and we'll have a chance to review that. The second one was providing services, because most of the offenses that were coming through had some type of drug-related cause of action or some kind of drug-related component. And this program allows for those citizens to avail themselves of other services. Mainly, Sawyer County has a CCS, comprehensive services, something like comprehensive something. It's a CCS. And what that does is it provides for connection for citizens. What's that? Something. But what it does is it allows for those citizens to have access to that. And then the tribe has a similar component for tribal members, so that it alleviates the jail population, but it also puts these people in contact with services to help them, whether they need to go to rehab, whether they got to go detox, or whether they need just other programming, which is like either vocational or something else. And so that's what this memorandum does, is it recognizes the tribe's partnership with the county in dealing with that. And then the CJCC provides other services. We're working on a men's shelter. We've got a healing court, There's a healing initiative that's arising from the tribal side that is going to be on the agenda for this coming month. And so hopefully, Mr. Slater, that answers your question.
Yeah, in fact, I'll make the motion that we approve it, pass it on to the committee.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Slater to approve the MOU.
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Peters. So just in discussion, and I will probably have to do a second motion, is the recognition of the tribal judge to sit on this committee. Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you wish to address on this?
No, I don't. And if you need me to make a motion for the second one, I will.
Do I have anybody else in the committee or that's present in the room to discuss the motion? James.
You spoke of conviction from, as I was an inmate within Sawyer County and Washington County as well. In reference to now being released and no longer within conviction or sentence, I will acknowledge the fact of what Sawyer County provides within the community, in stating that within public representation, like say for instance these meetings, there's other the Al-Anon Society and there's other, the church, and also the community college that I recently attended and applied for. There are plenty of opportunities out there for rehabilitating citizens or individuals. The reference of drugs, as far as I'm concerned, and I've stated it before in these meetings and outside these meetings, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who said this, but the war on drugs is over. I mean, it may not be over, but the definition of life that has been defined for so many years within society needs to end. It's a sick.
So James, I'm gonna redirect you back to the motion. The motion on the floor right now is to approve this. Do you have any comments or any concerns on the motion that's in front of the committee?
In reference to conviction, so he being released is no longer within the custody of the state. I would state that after what I've been through, that possibly was someone who you used as a reference, possibly, to the alleged motion, or crimes or that one that goes through within the public, and to define the conscious thought. The influence of some of that, I think, needs to be more structured in the circuit court and or the investigation unit.
James, I'm gonna bring you back in. All we have right now in front of us is a motion regarding a memorandum between the tribe and the county to move forward with providing services to people who are in the criminal justice system. This is not a referendum on the court process or on the legal representation that you may have had experience with. Anybody else who wishes to address this motion or any questions on the MOU? Hearing none, call for a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to advance this MOU for final approval by the county board, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
So same two individuals made the motion and second. Dale and Ed, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
And then I have a motion for Mr. Van Etten to approve what is the amendment to the MOU allowing for or recognizing the tribal judge to sit on the CJCC committee as a voting member.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Mr. Buckholz. Any questions on the motion on the appointing of or recognizing the tribal judge to sit?
You said like 3 different judges. Which
I know.
one is correct?
It's the circuit court judge, Judge Yackel sits on this, and the tribe wants to make sure that the counterpart for the tribal court sits on that as well. So the tribal court judge would sit. It just, it got lost in my head. So, any other questions? Seeing no other discussion, call for a vote on the motion. All in favor of the amendment to the MOU, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to number 14, ambulance report.
Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. So there's only two things I really want to talk about. First one is staffing here in Sawyer County. We only have one full-time EMT position open, which is something that we've had open for quite a while, unable to fill positions. So we're actively trying to recruit people for that one position, but that's pretty good compared to a lot of other services. One of the big things that's been happening, and I'm sure a lot of people have maybe seen it or read about it or whatever else, is Ashland County. So the only reason why I bring this up is because been getting a lot of requests, Tom has too, for information on Sawyer County and how Sawyer County ambulances ran, because it went to the Wisconsin Counties Association after the towns weren't able to provide an ambulance service for their coverage in Ashland County. Now, how that affects us, besides just information getting from Ashland County, Marquette County, Pepin County, some of them, is that, of course, they are a border for us. And one of the big areas of that does not have coverage, and I do have a map that's included on my second page, is the town of Gordon, and that would include Clam Lake. So our closest ambulance, if they had requested us for mutual aid, our closest ambulance is Round Lake. Round Lake is not a full-time staffed vehicle. So the next closest would be Hayward. And Gordon Township did come to us and they asked, is there anything that you guys would be able to do? At the time, there wasn't. I mean, we just didn't have adequate staffing to cover our county to help them out. So they're still, as of January 1st, uncovered. They don't have an ambulance. So Ashland County now is kind of taken this because they have the dispatch center and they need to figure out who they're going to pay. We have been requested once since January to go to Clam Lake, which we have taken that one. Now the state EMS section, I asked them, if it's technically mutual aid, do we have to respond? And the state said no. If you do not have resources in your county to cover your own stuff, you do not need to respond. It is not a mutual aid request because there is no verified ambulance service. But I just want to let you guys know that this is what's happening. I don't know if Tom wants to add anything to that too or not, because I know you've had a lot of discussions.
Yeah, I've had discussions with the Ashland County administrator as well, with their predicament. They've got a couple towns, as you mentioned, that don't have ambulance service. When he was inquiring, as you said, would we be able to do it? I said, well, if there's a town that wants to make a formal request to do that, we haven't heard a formal request at this point. But as Nate brings up, this potentially could affect our area. And so just wanted to bring it to your attention, as we move forward, just in case there's something that is requested of us, how would we handle it? So again, no formal request at this time from Twitter County.
Yes. So that's Ashland. And then the other thing that I have, and I don't know if you want to switch. I know we talk about it quite a bit. I know the sheriff's department has talked about it in the dispatch report, this Active 911. We talked about Active 911. It's a paging app program that helps, get communications out to first responders, can do law enforcement, it can do fire. This is something that we have started, and I know Mike has reported off in admin committee for it. But this, just to show you what this is, these are requests that are coming out. So we have this in the station at Hayward. You can get this on any of your cell phones as long as we give approval to the employees. And it alerts you that there's a request out there. So this is one of them this morning, and this is what would have come over the system. So it also guides us by map too. It references where other people are if they watch, or if they're responding in, it shows them where they're at. Dispatch can see that. And then it has the CAD information, that page information. So I just wanted to show you, since we talked about it quite a bit, what that is. And it's been a pretty big improvement in, I believe, our communication system here. So other than that.
Questions for Mr. Dunstan? Mr. Bennett, do you have any questions for the ambulance director? Chuck? Okay, moving on. All right, one last comment. I don't know whoever wants to hear this, but I want it to be recognized that back in 2016, there was a major major action that this county board took to invest in the ambulance service, with building of another ambulance center, hall, whatever it was, and then also making a financial contribution to ensure that we had services. That was highly debated. It's been questioned. It was a burden that the taxpayers of Sawyer County had to assume. But I want to say that it's unfortunate that our success is measured against the unfortunate circumstances in different counties. But I think Pat Sanchez, the sheriff, Nate, Mr. Dunstan, Mr. Hoff, and then there's other members, Helen Dennis was one of them, should be recognized because it was the foresight that they did that allowed for Sawyer County to meet what was yet an unidentified need by making that investment. And there was criticism that went in place about, increasing the levy and spending dollars that we didn't have. But that investment has ensured that the safety and the comfort of Sawyer County is met, that we've risen to that challenge. And so, Nate, on behalf of everyone else that I can think of, I want to thank you for your leadership in making sure that we've got services and that we're not one of the counties that has a complaint where someone calls for an ambulance and no one shows up, and that we're actually able to respond to other areas. Ms. Sanchez, I know that you were involved with this too, so you can't hide in, under your umbrella, that your leadership is actually, your foresight has actually been one of the guiding factors of why Sawyer County is at the forefront of the safety for our county. Sheriff, same for you. So I just want that to be said, and take that wherever you want.
Thank you.
Anything else for ambulance report? I know it's a harsh criticism, right? Moving on now to number 15, Sheriff's Department. Floor is yours, sir.
I don't know much to say. I will comment about the Berkey this year. It was a lot different. In some respects, maybe less when it comes to attendance here and people participating in the race itself. It was spread out over 4 days instead of 3. But I think it went pretty well. And we didn't have much for issues. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
The communications report, the joint power agreements that were approved were sent to the municipalities for signing. We have started our remodel project in the dispatch center. Dispatch is now temporarily moved to the classroom with the aid of the ID department there. They managed to move all that equipment out into the classroom and get it functioning. So the electricians and the plumbers are in working right now. They should be wrapped up by the end of the week. Be some painting and then moving all the equipment back in. And we're still waiting on a return contract from North Memorial for the emergency medical dispatch services. I don't know what's holding that up, but we haven't gotten it yet. So hopefully we'll get it in the upcoming months. As Nate alluded to, the active 911 has been really impressive. I mean, search and rescue will have it, our SWAT team has it, fire departments will have it, EMS has it, and it's just the convenience for dispatch. They don't have to page out all these people separately. And it all goes out at one time, all the information they need, and everything goes out. So that worked out really well. Total number of phone calls received for February of 21 were 3,297, and of those calls, 1,271 were calls for service. Down a little bit from last year.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the chief deputy? Mr. Bennett, do you have any questions for the chief deputy?
I do not. Thank you.
Moving on to Lieutenant Rapinski.
The patrol report is attached, along with the brief summary. The sheriff that's all that the numbers for the work binder were down. In total, they had approximately 4,393 participants, and even those numbers were a little bit lower. Our call volume also decreased from the previous month. It was down to 719. It's also showing a decrease of 214 calls from this time last year. But that's probably more than likely attributed to the severe cold weather we had, as long as the 20 to 30,000 less people that we had in their area during February of last year.
Report any questions for Lieutenant? Chuck, you got any questions for Lieutenant?
I don't, thanks.
Moving on to Lieutenant Johnson, jail report.
You can see my report up there. Numbers are up a little bit in February than in January. And as we get closer to summer, I'm anticipating that the numbers will keep increasing. I'm hoping with Justice Point being in place that's going to kind of help maintain everything. It's been a smooth transition with them so far. Obviously a learning curve for everybody, but so far so good with Justice Point. Other than my report, the only other thing that I will add, or two things I guess, is we're stepping back slightly or slowly on the COVID precautions. I opened up working Hubers again effective 1st of March, and then looking at opening up on-site visiting probably sometime by the end of the month.
Any questions for Lieutenant Johnson on the jail report? Mr. Bennett, do you have any questions for Lieutenant Johnson?
I don't.
Thank you for your report, sir. Is D the same as A on the agenda?
No, that's the radio.
Do we have any questions regarding, is that correctional reports through you, right? Any questions regarding the communications report, which has been submitted? Animal control report. Hopefully we'll get Sherry to come back to the meetings. Any questions regarding the report from Sherry for animal control? Chuck, you got any questions?
I do not.
All right, next we have the law enforcement agreement, which is complicated and it looks like we have guests. So we have an opportunity to move into closed session to discuss the agreement, which has been posted. Does the committee wish to go into closed session for that discussion?
Is this basically the same discussion we'll have as a whole board?
I believe so. I think we'll just have input from law enforcement in terms of what that would be. And closed session. Ms. Roker, what would be the reason for us to go into closed session other than just having candor to speak the motion?
Under the state statutes, you can go into closed session to confer with legal counsel.
Okay.
For certain matters. So if the committee members have questions for me as legal counsel that they prefer to discuss in closed session, you can do so.
So let me clarify exactly what this committee has in front of it. It has a agreement between the tribe and the county for law enforcement services. And the only issue that's in front of this committee is, do we advance this do we want to review this and then with a recommendation to the full board or not? So there would be a table but this is the agreement that's in place. Services are already being rendered. The sheriff has had discussions with the tribal governing board. We have tribal law enforcement present if there's any questions that we have for them. And in the purpose of going into, James, I'm going to hold off on that because this actually is really a pointed topic. So if there's any questions that we want to have discussion with LCO, with their law enforcement, with the sheriff and his law enforcement agency, then there would be a recommendation that we go into closed session so that we could have legal counsel address whatever the questions that would be coming from this committee.
Well, that's what we're gonna have to do in order to get, because I asked at the last meeting if legal had looked at this yet, and it was my understanding she did not. So I guess we can't discuss nothing here unless we go into closed session, unless we go right down here to the agreement and make a motion to approve or whatever. So I guess I believe maybe we should go into closed session, and I'll make that motion.
I have a motion for Mr. Buckholz to go into closed session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second for Mr. Peters. All in favor of the motion? Discussion.
Yeah, just as a point of process here, as the committee goes into closed session, IT will be putting those virtually into a waiting room so that if you are participating online as a citizen, you'll be put in a waiting room until after the closed session, which will be allowed back into the meeting afterwards. So we'll reconvene in open session once the committee confers with legal counsel in closed session. The one committee member that is on virtually will be allowed to participate in the closed session as well. So
just to let you know, Chuck, once we go into closed session, you have to certify that you're by yourself and that there's no other people that can hear you. And then once you do that, we'll have quorum, and then you have the ability to vote, or actually, I don't think you vote in closed session, but you have the ability to participate in the closed session.
All right.
All right, so we have a motion to go into closed session. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call vote for closed session?
Should.
So can you just call it?
Sure. James Schlender,
Yes.
Ed Peters,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Dale Schluter,
Yeah.
Chuck Van Etner.
Yes.
All right, we're in closed session, so.
I don't know if I got to hear Rebecca. That's what I wanted to hear, but we could have did that. So I agree.
All right, we're back in open session. We have everyone back in the room, online.
This is just like to follow on hold.
Right.
Do you want to wait for the tribal representatives to come back?
So we want to run down to the
I think you
Lieutenant
did.
Rep is pursuing that.
That's right. I'm gonna wait till he's here.
Eyes go bug
Chief, you gotta keep the door open. So, Chief, Ms. Khan, what's your title? Are you deputy chief or just queen of all you survey, or?
I'm assistant director.
So can you find some chairs up here so we get you close to the microphone?
Assistant Director.
Apologize for Chuck right now.
Sorry, John.
All right, we're moving on now to item G. This is the law enforcement agreement, discussion and possible action. What has been presented to the committee is a law enforcement agreement between the tribe and the county that is that incorporates the additional provisions outside of what the original state grant is. And so what is in front of us is an agreement between the sheriff's department and the tribe in terms of how the interaction between law enforcement is going to interact with citizens on reservation. We'll open up the floor for discussion. The only thing that's in front of the board, this committee today for right now, is a vote to either advance this for final approval from the Sawyer County Board at its next full county board meeting, or to none. So with that, is there anybody who wishes to speak to this issue? Chief DeBro, floor is yours, sir.
The only question we had pertains to law enforcement services. If the deputies were able and allowed to write their citations in the tribal court. I think that's the only problem that I'm hearing of right now. There's been discussion over that.
Ms. Roper?
Yes, I had a great opportunity to talk with your legal counsel, and very, very good discussions. And one of his first questions was, do you have a draft red line? What are you talking about here? What's the problem? And I explained to him what my charge was from the last meeting what the committee had asked me to do. And it's not a situation of here's a new draft or what I'm recommending, not at all. And I understand and appreciate that there has been a tremendous amount of work that has gone into this with the sheriff and other county officials and the tribe. And I'm certainly not here to block that cooperation. I'm just raising a question that the committee had asked me to do it. And again, we've made good progress in my conversing with Dylan. So you're correct that from my perspective, it's my understanding that the only question relates to the forwarding of information from the county deputies to tribal law enforcement, and then to be a citation to be issued under by tribal law enforcement, and then to go to tribal court.
Oh, okay.
Does that answer your question, Chief? Okay. Any other comments or questions about the agreement? Has the committee had a chance to review the agreement?
Yes.
And how does the committee wish to address the agreement that's in front of you? Chuck, you got any questions about the law enforcement agreement?
I do not. I'll make a motion that we forward this to the full board.
I have a motion from Mr. Van Itten to advance this agreement to the full board for consideration and approval.
He didn't say anything.
Mr. Van Itten, what's your motion?
To, I don't know, to approve that we're going to, as a collective body, send this to the full board.
A motion to send this to the full board.
With our approval.
No, not your approval. Chuck, so there's a question of what your motion is. So we have a law enforcement agreement between the tribe and the county. It falls into the jurisdiction of public safety because the sheriff's department, we provide oversight. This agreement is a negotiated document between the law enforcement for the tribe and the law enforcement for the county. And what's in front of us now is language that has amendments. And it's on the agenda for a discussion of possible action. So Mr. Van Etten, as best as you can you articulate what your motion would entail regarding this agreement?
All right. My motion is going to be to accept the amendments as written in this form as a committee and forward what is written with the amendments to the full board for possible approval.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion or any more discussion on the agreement? Hearing none. Do a roll call. All right, we got to do a roll call vote on this motion to approve this and advance it to consideration by the full board.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Slender,
Yes.
Mr. Buckholz,
Yes.
Mr. Van Etten,
Yes.
Mr. Schleter.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving on to number 16, future agenda items. Is there anything that the committee would like to have for next month's agenda? Mr. Van Etten, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Moving on to number 17, correspondence, reports from conferences, meetings, and other matters for discussion only. Is there anything else that the committee would like to discuss? Mr. Peters?
Was everything covered? I see the other item here, final draft to tribal deputy grant submitted. Is that, do we need to do anything with that? But that's only for reference, excuse me. Pardon me.
It looks like it's just all one thing.
Yeah, that was one thing that was handled that.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.